And I must comment, impressed on the candles this time.
You noticed.
Okay, guys, we're live and up on YouTube this evening. I want to welcome everybody to the Board of Trustees meeting for the Village of Port Jefferson, April 5th, 7 p.m. We are going to start our meeting this evening with a guest singer to do the national anthem. And Teresa, could you make that happen for us, please?
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare above bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land and the free, and the home of
Oh my gosh, that was amazing. I got teary-eyed. Whew, thank you, Jen Testa. That was so lovely. Jen is a local resident. And she's a singer for the Infant Jesus Catholic Church, the diocese there, and she sings at the Infant Jesus Church on Main and Myrtle, and also at the chapel. And that was very moving. And thank you so much for opening up our meeting with that. That was great. So tonight we're going to do our agenda items and board reports and do our public service portion or public safety portion at 7:30. So we can have our Suffolk County officials with us from the Suffolk County 6th Precinct. So hopefully everybody's got their agenda in front of them. The first order of business on the agenda is to approve the minutes from the meeting from March 15th as presented by Clerk Sakovich. I did not see any changes or amendments or corrections to the minutes. Are there any from the board members? Everybody good?
They're good.
Next order of business is we have a golf flavor, I guess, is coming off the payroll with us, correct, Stan?
Yes, he left.
Okay. Third item is Brian McCaffrey Sr., who is an engineer, retired, has done a lot of special projects for us. He actually helps us do the DEC permit at our landfill at the country club, is looking to do an update for us on the progress of the Super Clean Fund, the cleanup site at the Lawrence Aviation Superfund site. I welcome this update for us. And Brian actually worked with the EPA. I guess that was one of my first hurdles a little over 10 years ago. And the pump and the water treatment site is located in our ball field on Caroline. And there's a second pump and treatment facility at the top of the hill at the Lawrence Aviation site. So I look forward to this update from Mr. McCaffrey Senior. Any questions on that from the board?
Will
Mm.
Mr. McCaffrey Senior be coordinating with the town of Brookhaven and the folks who are working on sort of the other side of the tracks there? Just
Well, he's just gonna get us a progress report, Rebecca, on how the treatment facilities have been operating for the last 5 years. Get us the statistics. When the treatment facility was erected at our ball field, we were told it would be a 20-year cleanup process. We're told we're ahead of that schedule, but we, again, we want to get this report. So yeah, that the other site is upland on the other side of Upper Sheep Pasture. So yes, they'll be working there as well.
thank you.
Welcome. We have a change order. I guess this is to get the electric that we need, Joe, to the counting sign that we're installing on Barnum. Is that correct?
That is correct. It's to create a conduit trench in order for the electrician to run electric wires to the new sign that will exist outside of the new Barnum parking lot to power up the sign that will show the display of the number of parking spaces available in that lot.
Thanks, Joe. Okay. Number 5, you put out to bid. We outsource our tree removal services. For the last several years, we've been working with, was it North Shore Tree?
Yes.
And so we put this back out to bid with several of the other, plumbing, electric, and we're prepared to award the tree trimming. It's to a new contractor that the village will be working with for the first time. And how many bids came in, Joe?
We received 3 bids. Quintal was the lowest in terms of the work that we typically use, which is the takedown and removal of trees that are between 12-inch diameter and 24-inch diameter. They have many contracts with municipalities, including Islip, the town of Brookhaven. They've done work with New York State, the town of Southampton. In fact, I spoke with the superintendent last week because they no longer work for the town of Southampton, and they were actually saddened when they lost the bid to a lower bidder. And Quintal has a lot of experience, and I heard nothing but good responses from references.
Good. Glad to hear that. Number 6, I guess this is just to amend a prior resolution. Is that correct?
This is to, yeah, so the leasing or financing company had requested that their name be included in the minutes. And once it's approved by the board, we would share that with them and they can finalize the paperwork. So this was approved at last board meeting. It's for the 10 big belly receptacles and recycle centers.
Mhm.
And this is just a formality for the finance company to show to, I guess, the people on their side to
Okay.
get approval and finish the paperwork.
Okay. We have I guess, another matter of housekeeping. There's a recharge basin located not on Ellen Drive, but behind the residences on Ellen Drive, I think on the west side. The recharge basin there, I guess, was still in the hands of the town of Brookhaven, has to be transferred over to the village. We've been maintaining this recharge basin according to the Department of Public Works. So this is paperwork to transfer that back to the jurisdiction of the village of Port Jefferson. Is that correct, Brian?
Yep, that's absolutely right, Mayor. This was a legacy project that after the incorporation of the village, they had thought they had transferred all this property to the village, but the town actually retained ownership of this recharge basin relative to a subdivision that's approved by the planning department in that area that needed this recharge basin. It became clear that the town had it still, and it really should be ours because it's within the village. It has been inspected and engineered by our superintendent of DPW, and he's approved the transfer.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that work. I know there's a lot more work behind getting to the resolution, so thank you. We have this is to refund a $200 tent permit fee for Northwell. Is that correct, Barbara?
Yes, due to COVID last year, they
Yeah.
didn't have their event. They tried 2 dates last year. It's now going to be a virtual event in May.
Okay, all right, no problem. Come out of the trust account, correct?
Wherever it was deposited, yes.
Okay, all right. We have some salaries to amend. I guess this is, Mr. Garcia is a return employee. Is that correct, Stan? And Barb?
Been there a long time.
Okay. And some others, another resolution to bring on more seasonal new hires for the season there up at the country club in number 10. Anywhere from golf pro shop staff to maintenance laborers, all part of your budget, correct, Stan?
Yes, it is. We're getting closer to what we need.
Okay, good. We have 2 new hires for the Code Enforcement Bureau. We've had, I guess it's in the last 30 to 45 days, 2 or 3 officers either retire or take full-time jobs. So there is an attrition within the department. So we have 2 new hires, Alex and William. Have you, Barbara, received all the documentation you need for the new hires?
Yes, I have from Fred.
Okay, great. And we've checked their references as well?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And as just described within that department, because we've had some attrition and losing some of the code officers who have different roles and different jobs within the Bureau, these changes here will allow those code enforcement officers to step into those open and vacant positions. I think we'll be talking a little bit more about the Code Bureau and what they do. But just to touch on one thing very quickly, each shift that the Code Bureau has, there are 2 each day, 10 to 6, and then 6 to 12, and soon to be 2 a.m. And then we created an overlap shift. There is a sergeant who is in charge of each of those shifts. So the sergeant is in charge, for the men and ladies during their shift. What else do we have here? Beach cleanups. Rebecca, this is good news for you, right? I know you had reached out to the coastal steward, and we have several dates on the calendar here now to add to. I guess you have a beach cleanup scheduled with Hometown Hope, Port Jeff. Is that correct?
Right. So Hometown Hope had reached out about a beach cleanup on April 18th. I tried to coordinate with Coastal Steward, but didn't hear
I'm
back
not
for a
hearing
while.
Rebecca.
Sorry, Stan?
I can hear her.
So I had trouble getting in touch with Coastal Steward. They finally got back, said they couldn't do the 18th, but did not offer an alternate date when I requested one. So we're excited to see the community effort at Hometown Hope's beach cleanup on the 18th. Pat from Coastal Steward has reached out to me just today to touch base about beach cleanup. So I haven't had a chance to speak about the rest of these here.
Well, we typically have money in the budget to support the beach cleanups and pay the coastal steward. And then, as I said, I think which you've already coordinated, we usually get a dumpster donated to help carry off the debris. Barbara, these you have July, August, and October. Was there one in April?
There was one in April, but it was the same weekend as the Hometown Hope for the same area.
So so that one's going to be taken off, and we just need these 3 then.
Correct.
Okay,
2 of
good.
which we need to pay. The other one is just permission to do the cleanup.
Okay. Stan, is everybody else hearing Rebecca, or is it only just Stan that's having technical difficulties?
I'm hearing her.
I hear her.
Okay,
I don't see Stan. Does anybody else see Stan?
No.
I see
do.
Stan.
I see
All I
Stan.
see is, I got Rich in a full screen.
I see Stan too.
All right, so Stan, I think you're frozen, so you may have to want to try logging off and logging back on, please. Tracy, you can work with him in the background on that?
Sure. I mean, I could try bumping him out.
Yeah, because he looks like he's on my screen now. He looks like he's frozen, so he probably got bumped on his internet service or something. Okay.
For a second and came back.
Yeah, he's
What's
not
that?
frozen on my screen.
Oh,
And I can hear and see him.
Can you hear any of us?
I can hear everybody and see everybody, but Stan is blacked out.
All right,
Yeah,
so guys, we're
blocking.
just gonna let Stan come out and join the meeting again. So let's, because he's, okay, he's gone. He'll come back.
I might make the recommendation
Yeah.
to table this agenda item until a future meeting, until we have a clearer picture of our beach cleanup needs for the rest of the year. We do have the beach baskets coming in. Of course, we know that I am the super green environmental one here on the board, alongside Bruce as well, Trustee Miller, and all of us in part. But I'm curious to see the effects of our beach baskets, which are coming in, should be coming in June, and wonder if we should sort of take a look at that and perhaps use the budget money for another environmental effort.
Okay, so there's no when it was presented to me, there was the April cleanup as well. So there's no rush because these are for the next budget cycle anyway. So we will definitely, sorry, well, that's William barking at something. Barbara, we're going to postpone the vote on number 13, okay?
Yes, we'll table that one.
Okay, thank you. The warrants, I reviewed the warrants. I didn't see anything unusual in the warrants. I see in the batch that we have the payment for the business improvement district going out. And otherwise, everything looked pretty standard. So Denise, thank you. Is there anything else you wanted to add to that?
No, that's it. Just the bid and the minimums of the two big checks.
Yeah, coming out of the country club budget. Okay. So I don't think we have any other resolution items as far as our action items. So that there would be a motion to approve 1 through 14 with tabling number 13. Is there a motion?
Motion.
And second, Trustee Snaden?
Second.
And all in favor? And you know what we'll do is, Barbara, if you want to, if this is allowed, Brian, can we get Brian to stand to vote on those when he comes back in?
Yes, as long as
Okay.
he's hearing it or listening to it. Yep.
Okay, all right. So I know I see Chief Lute has joined us and we're kind of on track. We got about 10 minutes. I'm sorry, guys. We're trying to make this thing move as quickly as possible. Just to let everybody know, if you had seen a drone down at the beach, East Beach, we're doing some scanning services with GEI. That's the coastal engineering firm that we have working on our permits with the DEC for the bluff stabilization. So the drone has been out there. We're trying to get some FEMA money to help us, support the project once the DEC approves our plans, which are still pending. So if anybody saw the drone up there, that's what that was about. COVID updates, not much, except, they did open up the vaccinations. I'm sure everybody well knows it was for a nanosecond, 55 and over, and then it was 16 and over by tomorrow, which that means most of us are out there grappling with everybody else now for a vaccination appointment. Restaurants are at 75%, and I see largely we have a lot of outdoor dining going on in the village, weather permitting. It's been a little chilly, but I think things are starting to look pretty good and things will continue to open up. Basketball courts has been a hot topic. When are we opening the basketball courts for play, Barbara?
April 10th.
Okay, great. Rocket Ship Park is open. The families are out there enjoying that. Roadway projects continue on West Broadway. I really can't wait for them to clean up West Broadway. The sidewalk looks like it's nearing completion. I think it's just the on and off ramps to get to the sidewalk from the street aprons and driveway aprons. The paving project will then come next and provide a nice glide path down the hill into Port Jeff from the west side. And we also have a traffic light coming to the bottom of Liberty and Main. DOT is working on that. And you'll see that traffic light probably installed in the next 45 days, somewhere like that. Parks and DPW are ramping up. You see the street sweepers out there. Parks crew is going to be out there mulching, repairing fencing, doing general cleanup, replanting in certain areas as soon as the ground heats up just a tad bit. You see all the thousands of daffodils that we've planted are in full bloom, and things are going to start to look a lot spiffier when the green starts to fill in throughout the village. Just do yourselves a favor, take a walk down the Toast Stairway, or as we're now going to be naming it, the East Main Passway. after Sandra Swank. That staircase was put in during her tenure. And we'll get those placards up, but that park is looking great. It was a park that was done last year by the Parks Department, but it's taking hold now and it really looks super fantastic. We have an RFP out for our East Beach, the bath facility there. There's a very, very small room on the side of that building where there is a door that can open up, and there used to be a snack bar there in the old days when I was a kid. I guess those are the old days. So, and we're looking to see if there's any interest for somebody opening up a snack shack, something like that. So there was an RFP posted in the paper. We have some openings. I think it's tomorrow and Wednesday. Barbara, when can?
Tuesday and Wednesday, tomorrow and Wednesday from 10 to 11, I will be there.
Okay, so you can go and take a look to see. It's really an 8x10 rusted out room, but it has running water and it does have electric. So we're looking for a very creative mind to bring us a possibility to have a concession there of some kind. With that, Stan is not back in the room yet, so I'm going to pass it to Trustee Miller. Bruce, we got to keep it quick tonight, but what do you have for us?
Well, I got a number of field trips that I've gone on with the village with parks and some Zooms, but I'll report on them next meeting.
Okay, thank you. And then we have Trustee Snedden. Kathy Ann?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. With Code and Public Safety, I just wanted to report, and I think I mentioned it at our last meeting, that we now have a dedicated Main Street officer. At all times will be on foot at our busiest location of Main Street, walking up and down the sidewalks, available to business owners, to residents and visitors alike for whatever the need is. We've also implemented having an officer during the shift changes, so there is no time period during the day that there are no officers on the street. So there's always somebody on duty. Update with the bicycles is that the task force continues to work towards keeping our streets safe with the bicycles. I want to emphasize yet again that we welcome anybody on a bicycle that wants to come into town and obey the traffic laws and ride safely on our streets. However, we do not want any dangerous riding, and we have our officers and our eyes on the street with our business owners and our See Something, Say Something campaign signs throughout the village, that if anybody sees any reckless behavior, dangerous behavior, that number that is on that sign, I think it's important to know that that number goes directly to our code car, to the supervisor that's on duty. It doesn't go to an answering machine in the office. So that's key. I know a lot of people have said that they've called the code number and get an answering machine, but that would be the number that goes to the office. The number that you see on those blue signs, and I encourage you to program those into your phone, go directly to the car that's on the street that will show up to wherever location you send them. So with parking, our Barnum lot, you've probably seen, is up and running. Cars are parking there. That is about 90% completed. 99% completed, according to our parking administrator, Kevin Wood. There's some few minor details that need to be finished up there. The signage is up, and we have been having people park there free of charge, as long as we want them to check in with their, to scan the QR code that lets us know who's in the parking lot. And it has been very beneficial to attracting the employees of the village. I'm sorry, not village employees, but employees that work within businesses throughout the village to park there free of charge, which helps them out and also helps the businesses in keeping those prime spots open with higher turnover to allow the patrons to go into the businesses. We have also completed our 9 spaces of 2-hour parking at prime spots right behind the Lobster House. We're testing there. They've been set up. The signage is there. And what the long-term plan is to have the prime parking spots that are right up against the restaurants and businesses being a turnover spot of 2 hours, not to be able to park there all day. So that is working. And the next location that we are going to do that is going to be the ones in Chandler Square, right near Chandler Square by the brewery. That will be our next test of parking spaces. We have the new enforcement hardware that's been working great. It's up and running, and we've had very good feedback from our code department and our courts. So we're happy about that. All of our spaces, our 600 metered spaces throughout the village, have been restriped and repainted. So all of the numbers are visible, the stripes are visible. Court has resumed in-person sessions, and that is going well. The next thing on my agenda says ZBA. I meant to put ARC, the Architectural Review Committee, and to let everybody know that we on the ARC are continuing to review uptown projects. I'm very excited about the ones that are coming. They look beautiful. We're working with the architects, looking at samples, and everything is going very well and moving right along with that. And the last item on my list is the newsletter. Hopefully, if you have seen our first one that came out in March, our next one should be out, I'm hoping sometime this week for our April edition. If you haven't signed up, you can go right to portjeff.com. At the bottom left-hand side of the screen is your sign up right there for that. And that concludes my report.
And Kathy Ann, along those lines, while they're signing up for the electronic newsletter, they can go to the right-hand side and they can also sign up for the Code Red, which is how the village dispatches emergency updates. So let me just go back to.
Do you want me to talk a little more about that, or we're going to expand on that later?
Well, we'll expand on it a little bit later, but court in-person sessions, I'm sorry, you did report that court's back in in-person session, correct?
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you. Rebecca?
Great, thank you. We reported briefly, the Hometown Hope, who's a fairly new nonprofit here in Port Jefferson Village, looking to benefit our community, is holding the beach cleanup April 18th. They have signups on their social media for now and soon to be on their website, I believe. So please keep an eye out for more invitations and information on how to engage with that. It will go well if you show up. So please come out on the morning of April 18th. It's being held at all of our Port Jefferson beaches. As for the planning board, on last Monday, a week before today, there was a work session held about One North Country, which is the former Lobster House, which was very productive. And then this Thursday, April 8th, there's going to be a public hearing. Public hearing is the place to make your voice heard about new projects coming in. Not the place to make your voice heard effectively is Facebook or after the project is done. So please show up to this public hearing if you'd like your voice heard about One North Country Road, which is the former Lobster House, proposed to be a mixed-use building, apartments and first floor commercial space by the Gito Group. So that's what's going on the planning board. The CAC continues to work on looking at the tree code and the tree clearing permits so that they're trying to amend them so that they're more clear and easily accessible so that they'll be utilized more often and in the end better for our trees in the village so that residents, it's fair for residents, but also fair for the beautiful old trees that we have here because they're not making more very quickly. The community garden, I just came back from our site visit late this evening or late afternoon, early evening. We are groundbreaking May 1st, which is coming up wonderfully and terrifyingly quickly. So we're excited for that. And then plan to have a ribbon cutting on June 5th. So the committee is incredible. I sent a great thank you to them, working at a breakneck speed to get this community amenity out. And they all send a thank you to the village and this board for their support as well. One last note, the library is holding their vote for the budget tomorrow and Tuesday, April 6th from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. It is within the tax cap raise. It's a 1.23% raise. So residents can go vote for that. And that's all I have.
Thank you for that reminder on the vote for the public library. We have Stan is back with us. Stan, I'm gonna hold off on your report only because now I have both Suffolk County Police with us and Fred Lute.
Did you want to have Stan vote on that previous motion?
So Stan, we approved items number 1 through 14, and we are tabling action item number 13. So there was a motion seconded and the board voted. Would you like to raise vote yay or nay on those?
He said yes, but he's
Are you
on.
saying yes? Can you hold your hand up, yay or?
I got it. One
I
other
think he said yes.
question, Margot, there's a Caitlin Somerville in on this. I don't know who that is.
Well, I think that might be Casey, Suffolk County. No?
We have Suffolk County Cope, but I don't know who Caitlin Somerville is. Is that?
We're trying to work it out. It's a technical glitch. We don't see
Oh,
her on,
Okay.
I don't see her in as a panelist on mine, although I see her name in the list. I'm not sure who she is, but I can't see her to remove her because she's not in here on my end as admin. So we'll work it out in the back end. I'm trying. I can't see her to bump her out though.
Okay, Teresa. So check in with Kevin as well on that, please, for me.
Yep, we are.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it looks
I'm
like
sorry?
she dropped out completely. So maybe she disconnected to come back in.
Okay,
Thanks.
so thanks, everybody. A little technical house difficulties here tonight.
Gone
So,
again.
but thanks, Stan. So was that a yes vote?
Yes.
Stan? Thank you. All right, so after we do the public safety portion of the meeting, we'll come back for Stan's report, and then we'll go into the public hearing session. So Chief Lute, thank you for attending this evening. Can we hear, you can hear us and we can hear you?
Yes, of course.
Great, thank you. So we have Officer Casey with us tonight. She's our COPE officer, and Officer John from Suffolk County.
Well, that's, can you hear me?
That's actually
Yes.
Deputy
I'm
Inspector
sorry.
O'Brien.
Oh, I
No.
apologize.
It's actually Deputy Inspector D'Agostino. I used the link that you had sent to John. So forgive me for the incorrect name on my screen there. It's Deputy Inspector D'Agostino. I'm the XO at the 6th Precinct.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Oh, great. Somebody fixed it.
Yep, I changed your name.
There you go.
Thank you.
Teresa's fast. So I
Thanks,
want to thank
Teresa.
you for joining us. And Fred, first to you, if there's anything that you wanted to report, and then we'll go to Suffolk and get a report from them. But I think we may have some participants, Teresa, look for people raising their hand if they have some public safety questions.
Okay, well,
great.
first and foremost, from our end of things, we know about the tragic incident that occurred on Wednesday, March 24th. And in response, first and foremost, the Code Bureau and I would like to convey our heartfelt condolences to the man's family. Seemingly lost in all of this by some is the fact that a young man tragically lost his life on that day. As the tragedy unfolded, though, as an optimist, what I saw was a young nurse running across the street at her own risk and peril to help that young man. A doctor stopping in the area went right to the man's side and he began working. An EMT jumped out of his truck, gloved up, and ran over. That's indicative of where we all live and work, not some of this other stuff. These are good people and good neighbors who ran out at their own peril, ran out into the roadway and went to comfort a person who was injured and who had later succumbed to his his injuries. And I'm going to take a second here and I'm going to commend the absolute heroic actions of that nurse, of the doctor, of the EMT, of two ladies who absolutely witnessed this event, but hung in there to try to be of help to that victim and then called 911. The Suffolk County PD for their expert scene and investigative work that resulted in a very quick turnaround and arrest of these subjects. And lastly, I'm going to say that the Code Constable Bureau personnel did an outstanding job. They did so with their efforts to preserve life, to contain the scene, to capture and preserve evidence left at the scene, and many other necessary functions, all amid a very chaotic event. I saw good people scrambling to a man they didn't even know just to help him. And that's a community I want to work and live in.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate that. As we know, after the call, the Code Bureau was the first to arrive and assist the victim and secure the scene and direct traffic. And shortly thereafter, Suffolk arrived on the scene. I don't know, Deputy Inspector, if you want to comment, and then Casey, if you also want to weigh in. There's been a lot of questioning and concerns in the community about the reaction and why we didn't call for a lockdown and what do we do and how do And I think, if anything, we work really hard to keep this community safe, and I believe Suffolk does a fine job in helping us. The Code Bureau, we are not police. We enforce our village code, but oftentimes we are the first on a scene such as this and other incidences where we've actually used Narcan to save lives. And assist others that are in a tragic way. We had a ferry pull in the other day, last couple of weeks ago, where there was a gentleman who required CPR. We were the first on the scene to help assist, and actually, I think, was successful in helping save that life. So if you'd just like to comment on that and other statistics, I'm sure and then I think there's going to be some questions or comments from the general public, but.
Well, on the day of the shooting, myself and Inspector Riley were at the precinct, and we heard the call come over the radio. We were in a meeting with the chief of detectives and the deputy chief of detectives at the precinct. We had heard the call come over, and then we were just waiting to get a confirmation on what was going on at the scene from the initial responding patrol officers. One of which was conducting CPR, I believe, on Mr. Bliss. So we had gotten word from the detective lieutenant of the 6th squad that he was going to be heading up to the scene of the shooting. And then, we basically wrapped up our meeting, and then we were going to start heading up there as well. So myself and Inspector Riley were on the scene, as you probably saw from some of the media footage of same. But right before we had left, Inspector Riley had checked in with the COPE officers and told them, hey, why don't you give a call up to, it was at Port Jeff High School up there, and just let them know like what's going on. We had reports that the shooter, who had gotten into a getaway vehicle, let's say, was basically, out of the area. And I was on my way up, and actually there was some other radio transmissions going on that they thought they had the suspect vehicle on like an Old Town Road, which is well south of the location. That one turned out to be false. And then, I proceeded up to the scene and met up with the inspector up there. But I mean, as you guys already know, the suspect in the shooting, he was arrested on that Saturday. I can't go into, a lot of details about it because I don't have those details. What I can tell you is this, utilizing, the cameras and everything that are set up. And I think you got them tied into the real-time crime center out in Yaphank.
Mhm.
Homicide detectives were called to the scene, obviously. And then utilizing the information we were able to get off those cameras, by that evening, they had the driver of the car in custody. Okay. He was released after some questioning that night. He returned the next day with an attorney and, was looking to cooperate, with the investigation. The following day, I'm sorry, this was a Wednesday, correct?
Yes.
That night we had the driver in custody. The next day, I believe, he came in with his attorney. I believe on that Friday we had a second passenger. There was 3 subjects. We had the passenger. He was also arrested, and then having those first 2 individuals arrested led to the arrest of the shooter on Saturday morning. I think they did a search warrant in conjunction with his arrest. So, in short order, we had all 3 of those subjects arrested. And the arraignment of that subject was just last week. I think it was on Wednesday of last week. He was arraigned on a murder charge. So they're looking to charge all 3 individuals with gang assault, which is in the penal law. It's when 3 or more individuals engage in an assault that leaves somebody with serious physical injury. By definition, that also includes death. But Yeah, that subject was arraigned on Wednesday of last week. Are there any
Excellent.
questions that you guys need answers to?
Well, I'm just gonna, before we go to questions, Deputy Inspector, I just want to, Casey, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, to obviously echo what Chief Lute had said, this is a tragic incident, and I think that it is important to highlight how everybody did come together to render aid and be able to identify the assailants. When these things happen, and obviously I can only talk about this incident in particular, there's obviously we have to prioritize what needs to be done at the scene, and obviously the first thing on that day was rendering aid to the individual. Maintaining a scene, again, Chief Lute hit that point, and then is everybody here and around us safe? Obviously those questions were asked. It was determined that we should contact the schools and let them know that this happened, but we did make that distinction that the community at large and the students in the area were not in danger. Our recommendation was not to shut down the schools, that if the schools wish to do so over an abundance of caution, that they could absolutely do that. It was challenging to get a hold of the administrative office. I personally tried to contact the superintendent, and much like many other places we call, it's, recording, press this button, press that button. That being said, I just said, you know what, hung up, I called the high school. I actually couldn't get in touch with the high school. I got in touch with the elementary school's secretary, the principal's secretary, Amy's secretary. And I said to her, listen, this is what's happening in the village right now. I'd like to get a hold of somebody just to advise them that this is what transpired. We do not necessarily recommend a shutdown, because we do know all the details that Deputy Inspector just told you, was that the individuals were not an imminent threat to the community. We know they were in a vehicle that had left the vicinity. Had an individual been on foot and fled, and we did not know where they went, absolutely, we would have called the high school. We would have sent a patrol car to the high school and said, lockdown, after school events, everybody get in, buses, don't leave the building. So I think situations like this, obviously we can always play Monday morning quarterback, but I think what's most important right now, especially in this kind of venue, is to provide the education and information that we can to the community, to the village, and to anybody who doesn't know. We're here for these questions. I know a lot of people don't know these answers, and we're here to answer those questions and to allay anybody's concerns and let everybody know that we did everything that we could to make sure that, as we always do, to ensure that everybody is safe as they can be, while at the same time rendering aid to the individual, being in touch with his family and all of these things that we're obviously handling at the same time. I don't know if you want me to review anything further, Mayor, if you want me to go through the typical stats, crime stats, or is that important for me to do right now? What would you like?
So I'd like for you to go through the crime stats, and then I'd like to open it up for public question.
Okay.
Thanks, Casey.
Okay. So
I'm sorry. Lorraine?
Officer, could you please state your full name?
Officer Casey, Casey Berry.
How do you spell the last name?
Like strawberry.
Thank you.
Okay, so for anybody who's on here and not listening, that is not typically here, what we typically do is we provide statistics for this past month and compare those statistics to this time last year in the same month. So I'm comparing March 1st of 2020 to April 5th, 2020. And I'm comparing that to this year's March 1st to April 5th, okay? And what we do is we have a research analyst who compiles this data for us. We hit a couple penal law crimes that are more common crimes that occur, and we tell you what kind of incidents, like non-criminal incidents, happen. So last year, this time, total calls for service in Port Jefferson Village were 289. This month, this year, it was 320. So that's total. Now we break it down by these particular crimes. So aggravated harassment, last year there were 0 in this month and 1 this year. And that was an employee to employee, somebody bothering somebody. Assault, last year was 0, this year was 1. That was known parties, somebody wasn't happy with the other and they popped him in the face. Burglary, last year was 1, this year 0. criminal mischief that's damaging property, 6 last year, 4 this year. That was somebody who noticed their windshield was damaged while they were in the parking lot. Somebody's tire was slashed. Somebody maybe intentionally sprayed foam in the bathroom pipes of somebody, a house where people are renting. So things like this. Grand larceny, 3 last year, 0 this year. Harassment, 4 last year, 1 this year. That was 2 tenants that live under the same roof, renting space, and they had a problem with each other. Petty larcenies, there were 5 last year and 5 this year, and those were things like somebody's recycling bins were stolen from the front of their home. Somebody believed somebody took their wallet while they were at Danford's. Somebody left their vehicle unlocked in the train parking lot, and items were stolen from their interior of the vehicle. Robbery, 0 last year and 0 this year. So crime is down, as you noticed. Every single number was, well, not every single number, some went from 0 to just 1, but other numbers did decline. In total, that was 20 charges last year and 13 this year. Non-criminal incidents, there were 92 aided cases. Aided means an ambulance comes to the scene with the police and possibly transports to a hospital, and we had 78 of those this year. Total disturbances were 59 in 20 and 61 in 2021. And that means total non-criminal incidents, we had 262 last year and 287 this year. Total accidents in the village, there were 6 last year. And again, this is reported accidents, 6 last year and 20 this year. And traffic tickets, summonses written, 153 last year and 150 this year. So total arrests, there were 6 last year and 5 this year in Port Jefferson Village.
Casey, can I ask you a question about the accidents?
Yep.
We had this unusual situation where we had a vehicle come into the village after striking a lot of other vehicles coming up north on Route 112. Did that incident tag into these traffic?
You know what, Mayor, I do not typically pull specific accident information. If you'd like me to look into that, I can, because there's only 20 of them anyway. I could see where did that
sounds like a lot.
You know, if it started in right, I understand what you're saying, from 6 last year to 20. So that, right, each occurrence in that situation that you just described would be its own accident. So I can confirm that for you and get back to you. I'll send you an email and let you know.
Thank you, appreciate
that's likely. That. Yeah, for sure.
I think it's interesting to note that last year, this month, was the beginning of lockdown, where there was very little regular activity in the village. And even say that the majority of the numbers decreased, even though things have opened up this year, it says a lot. And, you know, I have to, again, as I always do, commend our code department and Suffolk County Police Department for keeping our village as safe as they do. Thank you all.
Appreciate that. So with that, I think I'd like to open it up to public comment, because I'm trying to keep an eye on the clock and not keep our Suffolk County Police here as long as necessary. Teresa, do we have anybody who has a question or comment?
I do not see anyone with their hand currently raised. Donald, okay, we have a couple that just raised. Donald Pollock would be first to come in.
Okay, so if he wants to come in, or just by voice, or also into the Zoom session, that's entirely up to him.
For both. Okay, please state your name and your address for the record, and please remember to limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Do you know he's on mute?
He's on mute.
Yes, I prompted him. He just has to hit the button. He'll take a second.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, Don, we can hear you. Thank you.
All right, how you doing this evening?
Very well, thanks.
Very good. I'd like to know, does the Suffolk County Police have the cell phone numbers for our superintendent of schools and our assistant superintendent?
Our school resource officers typically have that, sir.
All right, well, were their cell phones called when you were trying to notify them about the situation that had happened?
I didn't have access to those because the school officer was gone for the day.
I'm talking about their cell phone numbers. That's what my question was, do you have their cell phone numbers?
Right, sir.
School has nothing to do with their cell phones.
I'm sorry, I don't know if you heard me. The school resource officer typically has those telephone numbers, and our school resource officer was not no longer working for the day. They work from 7 to 3 p.m. So at that,
I believe the protocol should be changed.
okay,
Okay,
thank you.
because the question or the belief was that the shooter had already left the area. Okay, meanwhile, all he had to do was make a left-hand turn, okay, and he's right back at the school. Okay, and I understand, I don't know if it's true, if it's just hearsay, but I've been told, okay, that the car was seen, okay, going past our fire department, okay, after the shooting, and he lived locally. So I think it was a terrible assumption, okay, that he had already left the area. And we had a lot of students out on the fields, okay, participating in sports. And yeah, I think the protocol has to be changed so that no matter what time it is, okay, they can get in touch with the superintendent or assistant superintendent of schools so he could do what he's supposed to do.
Okay, it's a good recommendation. We'll make sure that we have the superintendent's cell phone. We'll take it up with the administrative offices.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Okay, yes, I'm going to bring in the next person. The next one up is Mike Weaver. Mike, just please remember to state your name and address for the record.
And he's on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So I just want to start off by saying that I don't believe in any way SCPD or the constables or code would have been in any way able to prevent what took place that day at all. But my issues stem with everything that happened in the 45 minutes after, similar to what the gentleman just brought up. So my question becomes this, and I have a couple of them. Do we have a publicly viewable emergency response plan for incidents like this? I mean, on the village level, SCPD, I know they did everything they're supposed to do. They're worried about the crime scene, the victim, and everything else. Do we have a publicly viewable emergency response plan with a flow chart of who's responsible for contacting who in an incident like this? In no way did I expect the mayor or anyone to put schools into lockdown, nor did SCPD, but the school superintendent should have been notified immediately. And the fact that she wasn't was a little bit of a drawback. I have also asked in previous times for a minute-by-minute accounting of what village officials did that day, because the shooting occurred at 3:35 and Superintendent Schmatan put the schools into lockdown at 4:20. You're talking about a 45-minute gap, all right, where there were serious concerns about the safety of children. You were just told by the Suffolk police that they thought the car was on Old Town Road. Then they found out, nope, that was false. We did not know anything at that time. We also were told that night that it was an incident that didn't involve local people. We're finding out tonight that not only was there a shooter, but there were drivers. There were multiple arrests made. Not knowing all this information at the time should not have been, a determination should not have been made at that time. All that was being asked for was notification. The school obviously felt it was important to lock down. The school should have been notified earlier because students and athletes were released prior to the lockdown. We're allowed to walk home. We're allowed to be taken home with no knowledge of what was going on. The school's athletic director wasn't notified until 4:25, and his coaches weren't notified until 4:30. That's a breakdown in notification, and that's something, I'm not looking to Monday morning quarterback, but I want to fix it. This is something that needs to be fixed on a village level. We had a constable there at the scene. The mayor has said she was there at the scene. In your own public statement, why wasn't the superintendent notified right away? Why did Superintendent Schmatan have to call 6th Precinct on her own to find out what was going on? One phone call. It's 2021. One phone call, and she would have known.
Mr.
Weaver.
Yes, I'm here.
I think that you're misinformed, and I think Casey, the officer, can verify. They reached out to the school district, okay?
At 4 o'clock.
They did, in fact, no, earlier, and they did, in fact, speak to the superintendent of schools and the principal from Port Jeff High School, John Estafu. And
She actually just said that she was unable to reach anyone at the high school and then called the elementary.
Right,
She just said that.
Yeah, and then what happened, Mr. Weaver, was then
There's more to
after,
it.
after, I'm sorry, Chief Lute, I didn't mean to speak.
No,
over
that's okay, Case. Go right ahead.
One at a time, okay? Go ahead.
After we spoke with the principal at the elementary school secretary, the superintendent did contact us and have a conversation with Officer F. Sathiu, who is my partner. He's not here this evening. But that was before 4:20 though, Mr. Weaver. I can't speak for the school. So I can't speak for the gap in time. But I'm going to put out a presumption there because our recommendation again was not to shut down the school, as you know. I don't know if that was maybe something that they were kind of kicking around. Like, what do we do? You know, that the police department does not think our children are in danger. Are they safe? Should we do everything that we can? And I'd imagine that was a conversation maybe that was had, or a decision that maybe required some thought. I don't know. But I think that the school might need to be somebody else who should be part of this conversation with all the rest of us at another time. Maybe we can do that another time. I don't know.
Agreed.
My main point, I'm sorry, my main point is our village constables and code and village officials were there on the scene. You guys at SCPD, your priority is, I understand the crime scene, you're pursuing the suspect, everything else, you're getting reports that he might be somewhere. My priority is that from this point on, there needs to be a new protocol that our village government, that we have been touting this entire meeting about how code enforcement makes us safer, this and that. They need to have a protocol where our schools that are less than a quarter mile away from where this murder took place are notified immediately, and then let them make the decision. The superintendent has the right to make that decision to keep our kids safe. There's not a single parent in this village that would be upset if the superintendent locked down the school in an abundance of caution to protect our children. We didn't know where that person was.
Mr. Weaver?
Yes.
I posted a public statement.
Yep.
And I told you what my timeline was from being on site and understanding what happened in this village from 3:54 to 4:11, during which time I used the protocol that is in place for me to touch base with the individuals that are on my list as far as chain of command. I did speak, and in my statement, I said I had 3 phone calls with Public Safety Commissioner Kathy Ansnaden, who was actually on the school grounds and standing in front of the security guard and asking for the high school principal and Superintendent Schmitten shortly after 4 o'clock. I don't know, Kathy, and you could give the specific times, at which point you had asked me, and I was standing next to Inspector Riley, and I asked, are the schools or children, because Kathy Ann's children were playing tennis, in harm's way? And they specifically, and Fred, you were standing right next to me.
Yes, they said no.
They said, no, they are not. And Kathy Ann was standing right there on the village grounds. I think everybody was trying to do the best they could, giving the circumstances of trying to contact the people while our phones are going absolutely bananas. And let me just finish my statement. And then by 4:11, Kathy Ann confirmed, and Kathy Ann, don't let me put words in your mouth or whatever, that Ms. Schmitten had been contacted and knew. And she then confirmed with me that in spite of the fact that she called Suffolk and confirmed with them that no lockdown was required or recommended, that she took it upon herself to do that out of abundance of precaution. So I think we've answered your questions. I've made a public statement to that effect. That's my timeline. Meanwhile, I have a job to keep the village safe, and I'm concerned about the victim, about everybody there, trying to manage the site as best we could. And, you know, I understand that you are looking for our protocol. I'm going to defer to my 2 attorneys as to why, you know, to get their understanding of why it's not a good reason for us to post that. But Rich and Brian, would you like to speak to that for a little bit?
I'm sorry. I just want to say, I'm not looking for anyone to be defensive. I'm simply trying to make sure that if this were to ever happen again in our village, we don't have a lag in communication. I don't know why it's becoming as defensive as it is. It's I'm simply asking that we have.
Right. So, but Mr. Weaver, what you need to understand is in a situation like that, where we are all trying to assess what the circumstances are and dealing directly with the Suffolk County Police. In the future, we will be using our Code Red emergency-wide village, public service announcement system. But the statement would have been the same exact statement that we put out at the time that we told everybody that the village is not in harm's way, that it didn't involve two people, local people. That was the statement, because there were a lot of rumors flying around very quickly that it was it somebody we knew? Was it one of the kids? And I put that statement out there to let my community know that no, it wasn't a resident. It wasn't somebody, that we all know. And it wasn't a drive-by shooting either, which was another post that went out that made everybody crazy. So, but that's what we'll do in the future.
I understand. I totally understand what you're saying. My thing is the fact that you're saying the amount of things that nobody knew at that time, which is completely expected. Nobody is going to know at that time exactly what's happening, is my motivation for wanting to make sure that in the future, everyone's notified as quickly as possible, because if someone was wrong, if SCPD was wrong, if you were wrong, and that driver did loop back and pull a left on Caroline and roll up to the fields and work their way back, or if he was seen on Old Town Road, that's something that would have been a tragedy. And in the future, that's something that I would want to make sure that we do the best that we can as a village, working together between the village, SCPD, and the schools to make sure that never happens again.
Can I say something?
Yeah, and then I'm going to defer to Brian after you, Kathy Ann.
Yeah, so quickly, to go back to the timeline, the mayor is correct in saying that when I received the phone call from her, I was at the school property in front of the tennis courts. My first question to the mayor was, are the children safe? I'm standing there looking at a whole bunch of them out on the fields. She said, I'm standing next to Inspector Riley and I'm confirming that the children are safe, according to Suffolk Police. So at that point, I remained calm. I went with the tennis team, who had already been notified at that time that Mrs. Schmatan wanted everybody to go into the building. I walked with them into the building and I was met by the security and Mr. Harathunian. I spoke to them and asked to see Mrs. Schmatan. They were unable to find her on the property, so I called her on her cell phone. We had a conversation at that point, and like we've all said and everybody has said, using an overabundance of caution, she was bringing the kids into the school. Now, there's a question about lockdown. I keep hearing this term lockdown. The school was not locked down by the definition of the word. The doors were wide open. I was in and out of the building multiple times. The kids were just brought into the gym and being released to their parents. Lockdown to me, and my understanding of a lockdown, is the doors are locked. Nobody can come or go. Nobody can leave the building. Nobody can come into the building, parents or anybody. There was no lockdown at that school. I was there. The children were brought in off the fields and they were sent home. Again, the doors were never locked. The doors were never closed. At that point, everybody was notified. Everything was continuing on. I spoke to the superintendent and that was it.
I want to say I do appreciate you were very good. I'd asked you some questions before this. You've been very good about that. The reason why the lockdown comment has been made is because the Connect Ed that went out from Port Jeff School District stated that the school was put on lockdown.
Right. I understand. Yeah, I understand that. So I'm glad that everybody's.
That's why the comment's coming.
Right. So we can dispel any of that misinformation. But I also want to reiterate, and Mayor and Mr. Egan, you can also explain how the village is not allowed, village officials cannot lock down our community. We cannot insist on a lockdown. And I know you guys are going to expand on that as well to help everybody understand how that all works.
Brian,
Yeah.
we have another person from the public. So Brian, last statement.
Sure,
please.
yeah, look, I'll just briefly, I mean, there is an emergency action plan for the village. It will not be released in public. Public Officers Law, Section 87 provides that if it's going to endanger a plan, we can't release it. Obviously, I think it's self-evident why you wouldn't want to have an emergency action plan released to the public. You wouldn't want to know where gathering points are or where those kind of things happen, because it also, while I'm certainly not doubting your good faith, there may be people who may not share that same motivation. So that under the Public Officers Law protects that from disclosure. And equally with regard to the timeline, I know there's been a lot of discussion, a lot of chatter about it, countings and timeline and minute by minute, almost CSI kind of requests. But again, those under the FOIL law and Public Officers Law, because as the deputy inspector stated, this is subject to charges and an active criminal investigation that will lead up to a trial, those cannot be released because it is an active judicial proceeding. So that's not our choice. That's what the law says.
Mr. Egan, I appreciate your answer, and I would ask, based on that, would those informations be made available after the trial was concluded?
When that time comes, absolutely. I'd be happy to review that and see what that looks like. Sure. Because then there would not be an active investigation, and that may be a worthwhile exception. Sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Weaver. Teresa, we have another member of the public you're indicating to me wanting to come in.
Yes, Melissa Paulson is up next. I will be bringing her in. Just give me one moment. Melissa, please state your name and address for the record and unmute yourself.
My name Melissa Paulson, 112 Foxdale Lane, Port Jefferson.
Hi, Melissa, what can we do for you tonight?
Yes, good evening. Thank you for answering my question. For the residents, how were they notified when this was transpiring? What protocol? I've lived here 8 years, and the only way I found out about this shooting was on social media through a Facebook group. Was the residents notified through your emergency system?
No, this particular incident was not deemed to be a village-wide emergency. This was a one-on-one incident that took literally seconds on Main Street. The community was determined to not be in harm's way. No need for school lockdowns. And so we did not use the code red based on the general confusion that has arisen in the debriefing, as stated in the Times-Beacon Record newspaper article. Moving forward, we will use code red, and that will be our one and only means of notifying the community. So please register for code red, for an email, for a text, and for a message at your home or cellular phone.
Okay, one last question. What qualifications, before this event would qualify for code red? So I know you said minute by minute.
I never said minute by minute. What, can you clarify that question for me?
So my question is, so this exact shooting, you didn't deem a code red. So what would be deemed to use a code red if you didn't use it for a shooting that transpired and you had a gunman, with
again, because that was a direct one-on-one incident and was not considered a village-wide emergency, we did not use our village-wide emergency code red system. The code red system has been used in prior events such as hurricanes, blizzards, days where there is massive northeastern storms with coastal erosion and flooding. But we use the code red only in the emergency. We don't want that to become, the boy who cried wolf, and nobody's then going to listen to their cell phones or get the public announcements that we deemed are village-wide emergencies.
Okay, thank you for answering my question. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Is there anybody else, T?
Yes, there's a couple more people with their hand raised. I'm going to switch over to them.
Couple more questions on public safety, guys. We have a public hearing for our budget tonight as well.
We have Mia Farina. I'm bringing her in now. Just please state your name and address for the record and unmute.
My name is Mia Farina. I live at 11 Maroki Trail. I actually just wanted to say thank you to Suffolk County PD for the great job they did. And I just wanted to say, am I still on mute?
Oh, thank you, Maria.
Okay.
No, we can hear you.
Wait, I just wanted to say, great job by Suffolk County PD on what they did, because that was very fast. I wanted to say thank you, just honestly, for everything, and for Kathy Ann, just always constantly giving us updates. And I do think that a lot of people don't understand what entailed. And I think we don't, what everybody did in my eyes was a great effort on everybody who helped the victim, on everybody who shut down the streets, on just rerouting buses and traffic is what you do on a scene like that. So I just wanted to give a positive and say thank you. And also with the people listening that did help the victim, to thank them as well, because it would be wonderful to know their names so we know that we have wonderful people living in our village overall. That is it.
Thank you, Mia. Thank you for your input.
All right, bye.
Teresa, one more question or one more public before we move on?
Yes, we have Hawks Nest All-Wheel Park coming in. Somebody else rose their, put their hand up right after that, but Hawks Nest will be coming in. If you can please state your name and address for the record and unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. My name's Todd Laley. I'm from Hawks Nest All Wheel Park. I believe I spoke with you guys last week. I'm getting alerts on my phone to do all sorts of things. Sorry, I'm distracted. This is a emotional time. My condolences to the families involved. And I would just like to let people within earshot know we're trying to put together a grassroots effort to provide more outlets and recreation for kids that would be at risk for this type of behavior. You know, I'm curious as to why a 19-year-old and a 25-year-old are grabbing guns and having a shootout in the middle of, broad daylight. And it's my heartfelt conviction that there's more that we could be doing in the name of prevention. The townspeople seem to be grabbing the pitchforks and torches and looking at the bikers, and they want to roust them out of town. All at the same time, now marijuana is legal recreationally. So it's easier for kids to get marijuana than it is to ride a bicycle. And I've reached out to some advocacy groups. I'm the Long Island skateboard advocate through the Tony Hawk Foundation, and they're providing me with resources to get this done, but we need a tremendous amount of help. And I was wondering if there was anyone within Suffolk County PD who believes in prevention too, that could lead me to a number or get me going. I know when I was a kid, we had PAL, and I think the PAL sort of disappeared. We had like a mythical feature in my high school, a guy named Kevin O'Leary. He was a New York City fireman, and he used football to try to steer us down the right path. And, I was one of these kids. I was a skateboarder. I was a extreme.
Todd,
Yeah.
Is there a question or is there a question?
Yes.
Or
Is there a number or a resource that Suffolk PD has that can help us with this grassroots effort to get initiatives
Casey,
going in the
Officer Casey just gave you her cell phone number. Did you see that come on up on the chat?
Leave my email and I'll give you my office number. Okay, give me a call tomorrow. I could talk to you about PAL and some other things that maybe we could do. Or...
We've disabled the chat, so you'd have to say it out loud, or I can.
Oh,
say it
sorry.
if you like.
Oh, okay.
That's okay. No problem. No, we could see it, but the attendees can't.
I see. Could you throw it back? I got most of it. Can I just write down the rest of it?
Sure. What do you need? The email?
I have the first 6. I need the last 4.
Oh, the phone number?
There was a phone number on the screen. I started writing it down.
854-8689.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Looking forward
Thank you,
to hearing
Todd.
from you. Thank you.
I think we have Marianne Gross. Very quickly, Marianne, before we have a lot of agenda ahead of us, please. Teresa, bring Marianne.
Sure,
last
give me 1
comment.
minute. I'm bringing her in.
Thank you. And then we can move on to Stan's report and then the hearings. Marianne, are you in?
Please just unmute, Marianne, and state your name and address for the record.
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Yep, we can hear you.
Hi, my name is Marianne Gross. I live at 204 Michigan Avenue. The last time that you guys met, last month's meeting, you talked about a bicycle group. So I think it was a group of you guys that are meeting to discuss issues with the bicyclists. Is that something that the public can get involved with? We're putting together a parents group, like Todd said, because we want to get rid of the reckless bicyclists, right? Nobody wants that.
Correct.
And we want to make a nice place for the kids. So we're not interested in promoting the reckless behavior. We want to promote great behavior. So I think it would be helpful if maybe some of the parents from this group could be in on that bicycle group with you guys. Is that a possibility?
Marianne, yeah, I'd like to weigh in on that. Our bicycle task force at our next meeting, I'd be happy to have you guys come in. So if you could email me at trustee-snaden@portchef.com, I'd be happy to get in touch with you and give you further information on that.
Okay, that'd be fantastic. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Marianne. Have a good night. Okay, so we're going to move on. I want to really thank Deputy Inspector Agostino for coming on this evening. I know how valuable your time is, and I really appreciate your support and efforts throughout the course of the year. And Officer Casey, we love you. We think you're great. Thanks.
You guys too.
You have a great personal touch with us. So, and we really appreciate the fact that you know us so well, and we appreciate everything you do for us here in the village. So
Thank you. Mayor.
You're very welcome. And Fred, thank you so much to the ladies and gentlemen of our Code Bureau. You guys do a great job day in and day out. We know what you do, and we know how important you are to us. You're welcome. With that, Stan, can we go to your report so I can keep this meeting moving on?
Can you
Are
hear
you
me?
there? Yeah, yes, we
Can you hear
can.
me? I'm
Yes.
back. I've got quite a bit of stuff to go through. I'll do it quickly. Ice skating is over for the year down at the Village Center. The sport court has been installed. The farmers market is going to remain indoors until May 3rd. It's there every Sunday. From the Recreation Department, the Adult Softball League is going to start April 21st. We have recently received all of our beach permits for the coming season. With that in mind, we still have openings for lifeguards and counselors. If you have friends or youngsters that are interested in summer jobs, we still have some openings. We also have some openings for campers in our summer programs. The people that had signed up, we now have some openings, so I would get down there quick, and if you want to register for summer program. The village golf outing is scheduled for August 26th. I know that's a long way away, but it'll give you time to put your team together and practice up a little bit. News from the country club. The golf course and driving range are now open for the season. Tennis is scheduled to open on April 15th. We've been very busy down there putting up windscreens, putting new benches together. The courts will be reconditioned this week. We have all brand new LED lighting down on the sports courts, the tennis courts. Both golf and tennis memberships are up from last year. We're looking ahead for a great year this year. The turn is now open for the season. The good news is Andrea is back. For those members that know Andrea, it's going to make a big difference at the turn. Our non-resident tennis and golf members are reminded to pick up your parking permits. They're available in the membership office. You're going to need those if you park in the lower parking lot. Also, if you do not have your club minimum cards, contact Danielle in the membership office. They're either in that office or they're being held in the pro shop across the road. I understand we held the lottery for the kayak racks today. Those people that put their applications in will be notified by Barbara. We almost have enough racks for everyone. Next year, if we can do it, we're going to have enough for everybody. I think we came very close this year. One further thing for anyone who's interested in attending the CCMAC meeting, we've changed the meeting. We've moved it up. It's going to be next Thursday, April 15th at 6 o'clock in the Village Center. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Stan. Lot going on. It's your time of year. Recreation is definitely ramping up. Okay, so we're going to move on to the, we're going to, guys, I think I'd like to do the public hearing on the no parking on Barnum first. I think that's a kind of a straightforward matter. So it's an amendment to section 245-62 of the chapter 245 of the Code of the Village of Port Jefferson. And we're looking to prohibit parking/standing on the north side of Caroline Avenue from Randall Avenue to Barnum Avenue. And so this is the stretch of roadway that now would be directly contiguous to the brand new parking lot. We just feel in order to keep that street open and safe for the residents, because we have a beautiful sidewalk there and the parking lot on the other side of the sidewalk and the tree line, that we need to do the finishing touch here is to eliminate further parking. We are not eliminating the parking that's up further on Caroline, the diagonal spaces where you can, park and then walk directly onto the ball field. I think this is only impacting, Joe, if 6 or 7 at most parking spaces. Is that correct? Kathy Ann?
Yes, it is. It's the.
Sorry, I was on mute. Go ahead, Kathy Ann.
It's just right up against where the the parking lot is and the sidewalk. Like you said, if you were to have cars parked along there and somebody made the turn onto Caroline, there's no space. So yeah, it's a safety, definitely a safety issue.
Right, it's just, sorry.
Just west of the egress of the Barnum lot, going east towards Barnum is where the no parking, no standing is.
Okay, good. So again, I think it's just a matter of, making sure that we're crossing the Ts and dotting the Is on this particular new parking lot and cleaning up the street there. So does the board have any further comments or questions before I open it to perhaps a question from the public? Anyone? George, I don't know. Is there a George here? No. Bruce, everybody good? Rebecca, you're good? Okay, so do we have a comment? Teresa, anybody from the participants raising their hand to comment?
I do see someone, M. Mart and Donald Pollock are waiting with their hands raised.
Let's take Michael. Let's welcome Michael Mart into the room.
Okay, Michael, you're being brought in. Please unmute.
And state your name and address for the record, please, Michael.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Hi, Michael. How are you?
Good, I'm very good, thank you. You? 205 Bayview Terrace, Port Jefferson. And my question is, you're taking, what was the regulation of parking where these spaces are no longer going to be available? How were they regulated?
I'm sorry, what do you mean by regulated? I believe they allowed. I'm sorry?
Could they be used as parking spaces prior to this code change?
Yes, I believe there was on-street parking permissible a certain number of linear feet from the corner. Parallel parking. And I think it was maybe 3 or 4 spaces at most.
Okay, I heard 6 or 7 earlier, so that's what I was asking.
Yeah, well, now it's between the 2 curb cuts. So I think it's been a little bit, and knowing where the no parking is, I think it's a few less than that.
Okay, that answers my question. 3 or 4 is what you think you're losing then?
Correct. I don't have Kevin on, and I think that's my best educated guess, Michael.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. That it? Okay. Let Mr. Pollock into the room then, please.
Sure. Mr. Pollock, you're in the room, just unmute.
I have a question about what standard just said. Non-resident, okay, members of the golf club.
Don, I'm sorry, point of order. This is a public hearing on a code change, so that's a general comment for after.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Listen, you're going to stay on for the long run, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, I'm here.
Okay, so just hold that question, please.
Sorry to bother, sorry to.
Oh, no, that's okay.
Wait.
Lorraine?
We can barely hear him. Just tell him to turn his volume up or something if he's going to speak later.
Okay, I will.
Thank you.
Okay, so any other comments from the public on this particular matter with respect to eliminating the parking on Barnum?
Nobody else currently has their hand raised.
Okay.
Motion to close it.
Is there a second motion to close the public hearing? So moved, and it's moved by trustee Laux, seconded by trustee Snedden. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And motion to adopt? Motion by trustee Snedden, seconded by trustee Cassay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, guys. That's definitely a house cleaning initiative. Now we're going to move on to the matter at hand this evening, which is the public hearing for the budget. We have a document to share. We'll wait for, I guess, Teresa, you have to share your screen. Is that correct?
Yes, you want me to share the presentation, correct?
Yes, please. For those who are participating, a copy of the budget is up available on our website. We're just going to give a little overview presentation to kind of walk you through some of the highlights. And then if you have more specific questions, of course, we can go back to the particular pages of the actual budget. So Denise, you want to start us off here this evening?
Sure. The 21-22 budget, the total increase of the whole budget is 1.9%. which is made up by our revenues, which are Park and Rec, our kayak racks, which took in a lot more. We've built more racks. Our mortgage tax, which is when you register your mortgage, it's 50 cents per every $100. So we've been getting a lot more revenue for that. The expense part of the increase is for the contractual expenses for the union contract and the
Hey, Denise?
Yeah.
So let's just start with the slide on page 1. Okay, so I think you're maybe, so let's just walk through slide 1. So last year's budget was $9,992,565. This year, the budget is going to be a little over 10,187,442. It's an increase of 1.9%. And basically, we have a loss of revenue, right, of approximately 72,000, and we're looking to make up the difference in increased taxes to bring in 122,000. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. So I just wanted to. So it's and if you look at the bottom there, it's going to be an increase of 3%. Versus last year, we had an increase of 3.5%. Okay, so now let's walk through the budget overall. And if you go to the next slide. So this is breaking down how our revenue comes in. And you can see a large portion of that is through taxation. So the tax revenue of 6.4 million, 42% of that is coming from our property owners and 25% is actually coming from the power plant still. And then you'll see the other contributions to revenue of these smaller slices of pie. So you want to just building fees. Those are planning and permits and things of that nature that come in from the building and planning department. Utilities, those are franchise accounts. We get a little bit of money from Cablevision to have their franchise here. We wish we had a franchise with Verizon, but we don't have one yet. Is there anybody else in utilities?
Oh, it's all the phone companies, the small ones.
We have a cell tower. Is it cell antenna? Is that in there?
No.
Okay.
That's just
Okay.
It's 1% of everybody's utilities
Okay.
throughout the village.
Okay. And then we get another slice of pie, and that's from our court. So that's all the revenue that's brought in through the court throughout the year. Rentals, is that our country club facility?
That's the village center rentals.
Oh, I'm sorry, village center. State aid, 6%.
That is the CHIPS and our New York State sales tax shared revenue from the state.
Okay. Village center recreation, those are the programs that take place at through the recreation department and at village center, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and the parking fees, that's managed parking, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and so those are largely how the village receives revenue. And so you can see that 67% of that is through taxation, and there's a large part of that through additional fees and services. That's just a general overview. Next slide, Denise. Or Teresa, I'm sorry. So then you're going to break it down. Where does the money go, right? So you want to walk us through this slide, Denise?
Sure. As you can see, the biggest piece of the pie is the contractual expenses. Those are materials and supplies. There's the software supports, which is around 26,000 a year for one software. Gas and diesel, the credit card fees and the bank fees, repairs. So that makes up the contractual. The next is the personal services, which is payroll, the salaries that we pay out. The employee benefits, which is retirement, medical, Social Security, Medicare. That makes up 20%. The debt services are bans and our bonds that we have outstanding. That's in the budget if anybody wants to take a look and see the percentages. And the interfund transfer is the state aid that comes in, like the Consolidated Highway Improvement Program. that is transferred out into our capital fund. So the interfund transfer is, it comes into the general and it goes out to the capital. So that's, and then the equipment is 3%, which is computers, our leases for our equipment at the highway. And that's basically it for that pie chart.
Okay, so then the next chart is going to break it down per department, correct?
Yeah, this is it's our budget is state mandated. So all of these titles, I think you have to just change the slide.
Teresa, could you, thank you.
So the general government is the administrative, which is the mayor, the board, the treasurer, the clerk, those parts of the budget. And that is the general government's 22%. That's the biggest of that. The public safety is our building department, our permits, our code enforcement. Transportation is the parking, DPW. That's that part of the budget. Economic assistance, that is your economic development. I don't know if you wanted to touch on that.
That's always.
Good.
No, keep going.
Oh, okay. I'm just trying to get to it. So that's the program for the aging and economic development. The culture and recreation is our parks department, our recreation and village center, our beach, and celebrations, which is our fireworks, if we get to do that this year. The home and community service, that is our zoning and planning, environmental, our street cleaning, storm sewers, and beautification. That is in that section, and you can see the percentages as I'm telling what's in there. The employee benefits is obviously the New York State retirement, the medical, the disability, and life insurance, workers' comp, so on. Debt service, again, is the bands and the bonds that we have outstanding, our principal and our interest that we have to pay out this year. And again, interfund transfer is same as before. That's going into the capital.
So these, for clarification, these are the New York State mandated definitions, but in our code and line by line code, we break it down to the departments that are familiar to us. DPW, parks, rec, things of that nature. Okay.
Yeah, if you go through the budget, you'll see those titles on each page and you can see what it represents.
Okay, thank you. Next slide, G. So these have been the impacts. I think it's, I think we're in year 3 of our glide path with LIPA. So we have a loss each year based on the assessment. This year, that loss in revenue is $116,646. So that's always, for the next couple of years, that's going to be our largest impact. We're in the midst of last year of our collective bargaining agreement, which calls for a certain raise, and there's also an increase in the minimum wage. We have a lot of seasonal workers here in the village, from our beach attendant workers to our country club workers. Minimum wage has gone up another $1. Employee benefits increased, largely due to New York State. Last year, the state really didn't make a lot of money in managing those accounts. So there's increases to our benefit funds, state mandated, including the New York State retirement system, which had a 6% increase. Denise, I think that 6%, was that the largest we've seen in the last couple of years?
Yes. Yeah. The stock market was doing well, but.
Yeah, I think this is going to be probably a correction from maybe a blip in the stock market last year, because it's still going up, but it depends on where they're invested in those more
I think
secure.
they're making up for the COVID that was last year. So.
Yeah. And then we had some, beginning of the year, we went for a bond anticipation note because we did not have a surplus to roll over as we had from many years past. And we wanted to keep going with those projects, which we talk of ongoing. But we still had the 240,000 in the budget. That comes out of the operating budget. Country Club still pays for their proportionate share of the bond, and the parking is also contributing to their proportionate share of the ban for the Barnum lot as built. So those were a general overview of the impacts. Want to go to the next slide? I think on the impacts, hold on a second. Okay, so management tools, a couple of things we did during the year. I think on one of the slides, it'll show we actually had a budget gap of over 400,000. And by narrowing it down to, I guess what we have it is 166,000 to make up, whatever. How do we meet that shortfall? We had a few positions actually retire in the village, and we had an individual leave village center to take employment out in the Hamptons. We did not replace those individuals. Instead, we sort of reallocated resources and personnel within, which actually saved approximately 135,000 in salary and in the benefit line. So trying to continue to work with the personnel at hand and not bring any additional staff on board, especially during the pandemic. Street maintenance equipment, we had a bunch of street maintenance equipment roll off of the debt service. One of the large ticket items was our street sweeper that we now own outright. So there was some debt that we could eliminate in that budget line. We've merged a lot of accounts and merged banks, refinanced our debt, maintaining our AAA bond rating. We've also implemented online portals for people to pay taxes and their programs and parking tickets online. That helps actually get the money in the bank a lot quicker and eliminates a lot of need for more personnel interaction or delayed, getting checks into the bank. We've actually implemented, we implemented it this year. It was supposed to be implemented last year. Beginning of last year is a new fleet management program with Enterprise, where we brought on our new three, Joe, is it 3 or 4 new code vehicles?
It's 3 code vehicles, Mayor.
Okay, thanks. And those vehicles will now be maintained by that service. We do have an in-house mechanic, but we hope that saves a lot of money in vehicle maintenance. And we are looking to now replace 3 or 4 vehicles a year through that system. Last year, we had purchased some F-250s and 150s for the DPW and the Parks Department. So every year you'll see 3 or 4 vehicles be replaced on an ongoing basis. Joe has been doing a lot of work with Steve Gallagher in that department to bring on board that fleet management system. Next slide. Oh, skipped. Go back. So when you look at the budget that's online, you'll see that there is a very large gap. The budget is, as of today, which is April, but I think that the as of dates are the end of March. Is that correct, Denise?
Yes, March 9th.
Okay, so you'll see that the revenue, the budget is a $9.9 million budget for the current year we're in. We're actually at 8.7 million in revenue, so we're about $1.2 million short. But when you go to the expense side, because we have implemented spending freezes and a lot of other programs to try and get through this COVID period where we've had a loss of programming revenue and, a lot of the village center rentals didn't come through. All those lines that we reviewed earlier, we've actually only at this point spent 7.3 million, but we do have 2.5 more months worth of payroll and utility costs to get through. So we think that we're going to end our year coming in safely. We obviously saved having to furlough any employees, and worked with a lot less. The staff had a $500 cap on spending. Anything above $500, they had to come through their trustee liaison or Joe as the administrator. So using these things and being able to narrow down a $400,000 shortfall, we've been able to maintain the projects. Our paving is ongoing. The capital projects through our bond anticipation note. The budget we propose is a 3% increase. It does pierce the tax cap. I think the tax cap would have been a 1.9% increase. Correct me if I'm wrong, Denise.
Correct.
But that to the impact to the average household, which would have an approximately a $1,500 village tax bill, is approximately a $45 increase per annum. Again, largely, if you look at the shortfall that we're trying to make up, it's largely 116,000 of the 160 that we're trying to raise is again from the LIPA glide path. So we feel the budget as proposed is going to, provide the necessary resources the village needs to continue to do its job, which is to provide some basic services to the village of Port Jefferson. And with that, I'll go to Denise. Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, that's all.
Yeah. Well, there'll be questions, I think. So first and foremost, are there any questions? Teresa, you can actually stop sharing that screen, but what I think we might have to do is get prepared to share the actual budget. Are there any questions from the board members? Mr. Miller? You're on mute.
There was a very large budget item passed in the federal government that was supposed to provide relief from municipalities. Can we anticipate anything from that?
So I know Joe and Denise are working with Albany directly. Sorry, I just went dark here. And we are anticipating, we're hoping that we will receive some revenue. We're unclear at this time as to what that amount would be. My recommendation to the board is if and when we get that, we apply it to buying down our debt service. Because that's how we've traditionally used our surplus to fund our capital projects, and we had to go do a bond anticipation note. We do have a major beach project ahead of us, which is the stabilization of the bluff. So I think at the time that we can confirm, Bruce, what kind of revenue we might be receiving, the Board of Trustees will, decide and take a vote on how they want to see that appropriated.
Thank you.
Joe, Denise, you want to add?
No, I sat in a meeting with Chuck Schumer and NICOM. That's going to come straight from the state. They thought we were getting a percentage from the town, and they thought we would have to go through the town. We should be getting it. They're saying within the next month or two. So hopefully they can move on and we can get that pretty soon.
And it's going to be paid out over a 2-year period. So whatever we do receive will be in this budget cycle, and the second portion of it will be in the next budget cycle.
Again, we'll more than likely apply that to the buying down our debt service. But again, this board will vote on the allocation of those funds when we see them. As you can see, we did a lot less this year. Not having approximately $1.2 million to work with. So we're going to maintain our street paving projects moving forward. And that's well in the budget, and look at some of the other projects that are ahead of us that need hard capital. But it's a good question, Bruce. Thank you. Any other questions from board members?
No, I previously asked my questions and they were cleared up. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. So what we're going to do is open it up for any general comments from the public. Teresa, do we have anybody raising their hand specifically about the budget, please?
I see Donald Pollock with his hand raised.
Okay.
Donald, I'll bring you in if this is regarding the budget. Please just unmute yourself and speak up a little louder so that they could hear you.
Hi, Don.
Oh, I did not see anything coming in, okay, from the Crest Group, okay, for the use of the facilities, okay, at the country club in the budget. Okay, am I missing it or is there nothing coming?
No, it's there. It's Don, in the main budget on page 1. I believe that's the line item concessions. Is that correct, Denise?
Correct.
Okay, so yeah, the budget there is for $240,000 a year, Don. This year, because of COVID, they are now back on track paying their $20,000 a month. But there was a forbearance agreement entered into because they're considered a tenant, and so unfortunately we were only able to collect at this point in time, as of March 15th, 63,000 of that concession in 2020. Is that correct, Denise?
Correct.
Thank you very much, because I do not have a copy of the full budget in front of me at this point.
Okay, that's okay, Don. Thanks. Good question. Anybody else?
I don't see anybody else with their hand raised. Oh, hold on, 2 people just raised. Barbara Ransom is up next. Barbara, I'm bringing you in. Just please unmute and state your name and address for the record, please.
Barbara Ransom, 409 East Broadway.
Barbara, how are you tonight?
Good, Margot. How's everybody?
Good.
Good. What, did you get my address okay?
Lorraine, did you get Barbara's address? Yes, you did. Yep.
With all the new apartments that are going up and the proposals and such, and many of them, there's a tax relief for them. If it's through the IDA, and what is the period of time for how long they get a tax reduction before they really get put on tax records fully?
So each one, Barbara, are on a pilot payment in lieu of tax program. Each is a 10-year. I believe I can confirm. Usually it's at minimally a 10-year glide path. Depending on when those pilots actually impact them. I think Rail Realty was the first that received it. I think they're probably in year 4 or 5 at this point. Then you had the shipyard come on. And I think you have then the Tunis apartments here. And so they're each on a gradual glide path. There's a schedule that we can provide and get to you from the tax assessor's office. I believe as they approach years 2, 3, and 4, those properties are paying more than what they were paying when they were, the pre-existing, abandoned hotel, whatever other use the property was before. But yes, the IDA grants that relief. We have no standing in those, unfortunately, in those hearings. We go and we make comment, especially I made comment on the shipyard. I felt that building being built across the street from the harbor with water view, that they should not get relief. You can relieve your sales tax or mortgage tax, but when it comes to the little guy, that little village tax is important to us. But that's kind of water under the bridge at this point.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mayor, some could be 10, some could be 15, some could be even longer.
Right. I think the shipyard might be 15. I can't remember, but I think the Hills is 10. The shipyard may be 15, but we'll get those schedules. We'll make them available for you, Barbara.
I don't see anyone else currently with their hand raised.
We sure that's it?
Move to close discussion.
So moved. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Trustee Laux. All in favor of closing the public hearing on the budget?
Aye.
Is there a motion to approve the budget?
I'll make that motion.
Moved by Miller, seconded by Laux. Is there a motion to approve the budget? So moved. All in favor?
Aye.
I want to thank the treasurer's office, Denise. I think you guys did a great job. You had a very difficult year. We're still managing through it. I want to thank Michelle She had a very difficult week. But she's doing a great job. And Dave, I know you guys met with Dave, our internal auditor, to continue to work on our procurement procedures. Everybody's doing a great job. I'll open up now for public comment. So Mr. Don Pollock, you can come back into the room and ask that other question you wanted to ask. Because we'd like to go watch that ball tip at 9:20 for that final game, right, Stan?
Donald
got
Pollock is ready. He's got his hand raised and he's ready to come in. So I'm bringing
Okay.
him back in first.
Come on back in, Don.
Now? Can you hear me now?
We can.
Okay, fine. Excuse me. Before Stan mentioned that non-residents that are joining into the country club are receiving a parking sticker to park in the lower lot. Okay, is this the same sticker that the residents get, or is this just a sticker for that lot?
No, it's actually a hanging thing that goes on their mirror. It's totally different than the village lot.
Okay.
It's good for the lower lot up at the country club.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure of that. And number two is I believe the shipyard is 18 year, but I know you'll check into that. And I'm hoping that tonight is the correct night to wish Mayor Grant a happy birthday.
It's been a long day, Don, but yes, it is. And I don't have a birthday candle or birthday cake, but I can assure you I'm going to have a cocktail after I have this meeting over with. But thank you.
Maybe more than one. Enjoy.
Thanks, Don. Appreciate that.
Yes.
So any other public comments? Teresa?
Somebody just raised their hands. Give me 1 second. It's M. Mart would like to come back in. Please just unmute.
Hello.
Michael.
Hi. The reason that I stayed so long to the meeting is that I saw that on the agenda, the question of Airbnb use of properties was on the agenda, but I don't hear any discussion about it.
Yeah, I think Mr. Miller was going to report on that, but he's deferred to reporting next week.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, at the next meeting. I apologize, Michael. The next meeting.
Next meeting. Well, I think it's an important issue.
Yes.
And I would hope that we look at it very carefully as a village.
Mhm.
And there's no transient rentals allowed as of now, and that's basically what they are. And there are some in the village that are occurring. And it can have a dramatic impact on the nature of the communities in which they will be operating. So it's not an insignificant issue. And
Correct.
yes,
sorry.
Go ahead, Margot.
No, that's okay. I agree. Allison had attended a seminar on Airbnb, and I know that Rebecca and is working with the I don't know if it's the planning department or the members of the building department themselves. So I'm anxious to see what Bruce has to say, and this has been on our radar, Michael, and something that we know we have to look into how we're going to curb the Airbnb or make a decision how we handle it.
Okay, but what is the status of it right now? Could I rent my house as an Airbnb?
Do you have a rental permit? I don't know if the
no, I just found out that we actually had rental permits, but rental permits require a minimum amount. I think it's 21 days, which would be a lease. Airbnb is transient. It's like a motel. You come and you go. So it's 2 nights, 3 nights, 5 weeks. So there's no permit for that I would need because it's not covered by rental.
Well, I believe right now our code does not permit you to run an Airbnb or rent your house as an Airbnb.
Right.
And I see my attorney flipping through the code ferociously.
Yeah.
I'm almost confident that it doesn't.
Yeah.
I always like to hear from Mr. Egan.
Yeah. No. Hello, Michael. Always nice to see you.
Good to see you.
It's definitely something that we're talking about. Looking at what we're to do, and where do you draw that fine line on a general rental permit? What is that minimum time period? I think we'll be able to come up with an easier solution for the village, but it definitely is something we're actively talking about. With regard to the question of whether you can rent it, no, I think the position in the village is going to be that a rental permit is going to be required if you're going to rent your house.
Right. Okay. So that means that it would be inspected. It would be insured properly?
All of those things, correct.
But the only, is there a public hearing required for a rental permit?
No.
Okay, I think that would be very important because my wife and I have stayed at several Airbnbs and had very interesting experiences.
Were they legal?
It was legal, as far as I know. I was legal. I don't know what we didn't misbehave. But the question though was, we wouldn't want to live next to them necessarily. There's comings and goings at all hours. You don't know who's going to be in your neighborhood. And we've read in the paper time and time again of people renting properties and then having big parties or whatever. And then they're gone the next night. But it does have, or the next week, but it does have an impact on the community. And I'm not saying we shouldn't have them. We have Airbnbs. And there are very strict regulations for that.
Mr. Mart, we have bed and breakfasts.
Bed and breakfast, is that what I said? Yeah, we have bed and breakfast, right? And there are strict and good regulations for that. And then they're welcome in the community because they're owner operated for the most part.
Correct.
Someone there who's in charge.
And as we've been corresponding and I've been having discussions with our planning department, our building department, our code, our village attorneys, the other trustees, we're trying to address this, as you've been stating, very carefully and thoughtfully, because there are these fine lines between regulation and what is a proper bed and breakfast, something of which I have far too much experience with for my age, and and too many gray hairs as a result. But I do know that it's very important to be a good steward of my neighborhood as the proprietor of a bed and breakfast. And so how do we look at these potentially transient rentals and write a code that might allow them, might not allow them? And so we're having this discussion as board members and looking, with the village attorney, with our planning department, to see what are the options. And then of course, with any new code as it's proposed, there would be a hearing for it. So, we look forward to continuing to work on that and then presenting that to the public.
Well, I understand that and I appreciate it. But in the meanwhile, we have Airbnbs in the community. And they are operating.
And if they are not licensed under our B&B code or have a rental permit, Attorney Egan, correct me if I'm wrong, our code officers can be addressing these as violations of the code.
Or you drew that line correctly, Trustee Cassay. You drew that exactly. It does go ABC. And I think that you and Mr. Mart laid out where those parameters are, right? You have the bed and breakfasts that are hyper regulated, and including to the point of site plans. You've got rental permits, which are kind of in the middle, which are standard for Long Island. Again, something that this village before Mayor Garant did not even have. There was no rental permit. There was no possibility of it. There wasn't even a use. So we needed to control that. That was one of the first things that Mayor Garant put in. I'm just looking at the year in 2013, which is pretty amazing, right? So you've got that. You've got the bed and breakfast. They're very regulated. You've got the rental permits, which are somewhat in the middle, and then you've got this kind of anarchy way over here of what people are doing or not doing, because bed and breakfasts have an occupant on site. Michael, the point that you use with the Airbnb, sometimes they rent the room, sometimes they rent the floor, sometimes they rent the whole house, and the owner is not there.
That's right.
You saw what happened out in the Hamptons recently.
Exactly.
With that crazy episode. So we're definitely formulating something to be in there. I think we've got it. Unlike the other villages, we've got a good bumpers in those examples of the bed and breakfast and the rental permits. So we'll be able to fine tune that into something good. There are other villages that really lost their path on trying to regulate.
Right. Well, I'll be happy to work with you on that. It's very concerning to me. I know that I have friends that have apartments. They're part of co-ops. They're not allowed to rent their properties as Airbnb. I don't think that's probably permissible. Let's say the Shipyard. If you rent an apartment, can you then turn around and rent it for $300 or $400 a night? I doubt very much that's permitted in the leases there. And there are good reasons for that. So I would be happy to work with you and encourage you to continue to come up with the code expeditiously, because they're already here. They are already here. When there's a loose dog in the neighborhood.
Call the dog catcher.
It could bite. It could bite.
Okay.
Give him a bone.
I'm sorry?
Give him a bone. Get him
Give
a
him a
bone.
bone.
Okay,
I just have to tell you a very funny one. I think you'll enjoy it. Not to me. it was
well,
just-
we have more people waiting, Michael,
Oh,
so
okay,
is it 15 seconds or less? I mean,
How about the yacht in our harbor that's an Airbnb for $750 a night?
wow.
Takes up parking. We get no revenue. It's an
Nice.
interesting issue.
Nice. Let me know what buoy you're on, Mike. Okay.
It's
Who's
not
next?
a buoy. It's not a buoy. Even better than that.
Who's next, Teresa? You have another gentleman? Teresa?
Sorry, I just brought in Richard Tukash. If he could just please unmute and state his name and address for the record.
Thank you, Teresa.
Hi, how are you? I live on 111 Caroline. Can you hear me?
Hi, Richard. Yes, hi, Richard. How are you tonight?
I'm good. I'm good. I tried to get in on a little bit earlier when you were talking about the parking.
Okay.
So I'm right on the corner of Randall and more. I'm on Caroline. And
Okay.
I brought this up to Trustee Snaden before about the parking in front of my house. That the road is too narrow. So what happens is when people park in front of my house, I'm right next to the new parking lot. So
Right.
if there's school buses that are passing, they're over the double yellow line. My daughter, she's in second grade. So another thing is, the parking lot is right across the street from me. They're still parking in front of my house. There's plenty of parking spots in the parking lot, but they're still just parking in front of my house.
Right. So we just changed the code tonight, Richard, so to
Yes.
prohibit them from now being able to park in front of your house. So we can now change the signage and we can now enforce that.
Yeah, but from my understanding, you were stopping at Randall.
So I'm sorry, which corner are you on?
I am on the corner of Randall, but I'm on Caroline. So it would have to be extended a little bit further from Randall, just like.
So are you impacted by the diagonal parking or the parallel parking? Kathy Ann, can you?
Yeah, last time when I was on, they put a map of my house up. I don't know if you could do that.
Yep, I'm looking at it right now. He's on the corner of Randall and Caroline. He is he's south of Caroline and west of Randall. So are you saying they're parking on the south side of Caroline? That's what's the concern?
Yeah, right in front of my house, they're parking. I don't care so much, if they park on the ball field side, but, and that sometimes is, when I pull in and out, it's a pain too, but I'm more concerned with right in front of my house on Caroline. Like the town property in front of your front yard.
Again,
At the end, is that the first house?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
across from the ball field? Where
Yep.
the ball field starts?
Yes.
So again, is it parallel parking when he's saying, so are they parking across the street from your house or right in front of your house?
They do both.
And you're saying it's not wide enough if somebody's parked in front of your house and across the street? It's not wide enough for.
I mean, when cars are driving by, they're in the middle of the road. Yeah, once a car's, no matter how close they park they could be like a half inch away from the curb. There's still going to be cars now. Whenever they pass, they're going to be in the middle of the double yellow.
Okay, so can you guys do me a favor? Can you go back out into the field and meet Richard at his property and find out, how I have to also now amend the code to, I'm not clear if it's a parallel parking issue or if it's where the diagonal parking moves in. Can we see if we can help out and
Yeah, I understand what he's saying, and I've been out there. We can definitely do that. Maybe I can take a walk over there with Joe. Unfortunately, a lot of our streets within the village are very narrow, and when parking is allowed on one or both sides, it causes that. To go around, you have to cross over and go into the other lane of traffic. We've had that issue on many different streets. I don't know how to solve the problem throughout the village, but we can definitely come out and take a look at at your neighborhood and see how that works. I'm seeing exactly where it is. So
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And I know you got the slotted spots a little further, by, I guess where that building that pumps out all the poison, which is fine. And then you got the new parking lot. But again, like I'm saying, the people don't even use those slots. They'd rather park in front of my house. I don't understand it, but that's what's happening.
probably because they're heading east on Caroline, and it's just easier to pull over and park in front of your house than it is to make a U-turn or come up the other way, because the head-in parking is slanted so that you have to be heading in that direction.
Right. So, but if we have to eliminate parking on that side of the road, because I agree with Richard, if you're in one of those slanted spots and you're trying to pull out, you have oncoming traffic, and then somebody else parked on the other side. That's a recipe for disaster. So let's look at the west side of the road, and see if we can address that, please.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
I've only been here for about a year now, so I don't know if I guess maybe the other lady didn't care. I mean, I don't know. I think she had kids, so. But my daughter's going to be 8.
Yeah, no. Okay, no, we'll look into it. We put in that speed table there because of the way that people come down that road.
Right.
And that's a very active area. We encourage people to use the ball field and use those parking spaces, because they're out on the fringes, but we got to keep the neighborhood safe.
Thank you. So anytime you can reach out to me. You want my email address or?
You know what? Could you email me your contact information?
I think I messaged you on Facebook.
Okay. Probably there then.
Bruce, did you have something to say? Did you want to say something, Bruce?
I'm just wondering what's the net? We built a parking lot. Now we're removing parking spaces from Caroline. What's the net gain with the new parking lot?
Well, I definitely don't, I don't want to create a situation. These cars should be in the lot and not on the street, so I don't think parking across from where we have those slotted spaces sounds very safe at all. But it's a good point, but the neighborhood has to stay safe. I think that I don't think these what Richard's talking about really has anything to do with the parking lot. But anyway, can I ask you guys to do a favor? Stan, can you keep running this meeting for me?
Sure.
Okay.
How far are we going?
I just have to, I think there might be somebody else in the room. Teresa, is there somebody else in the room?
No, I think everybody else put their hands down.
Oh, okay.
I don't think there's anybody else waiting to ask any questions.
Just wanted to clarify, I do have Richard's contact information. I'm good.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Bruce? Okay, so if there's nobody else in the room, then a motion to adjourn by Mr. Miller. Is there a second?
Oh, yeah.
Rebecca Cassay, and so move to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Great meeting tonight, guys. Hardworking. Thank you so much. Thanks to
Go.
the executive team.
Go Gonzaga.
Yeah, go zigzagging. Woo-hoo.
Zigzagging.
Oh, thank you.
Night, Margot. Happy birthday.